Sweet. Welcome everybody here tonight to our council meeting. I just remind everyone that this is a regularly scheduled meeting and has been posted according to Oklahoma laws. We'll begin with a roll call. Councilman Busenbark.
Here.
Councilman White.
Here.
Councilman Baird.
Here.
Councilman Riley.
Here.
And Councilman Allen.
You did that last time.
I know. I almost called you another councilman. So anyway, to begin, we'll have a prayer by our interim city manager. And then if you'd all follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we humbly bow our heads before thee this time. Father, we're grateful for this wonderful place that we live in that we call Roosevelt. We're grateful for our neighbors and for the people that live here. Father, we ask that you'll bless us with the Spirit tonight, that council will be able to make the right decisions and what's best for Roosevelt City and be open-minded and have a good discussion and do the right things that's for our community. We're grateful for all thou's given us. We pray that you'll bless those who are serving our country at this time, that they may have the Spirit with them and safety upon their heads. And we're grateful for all thou's given us. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm just so surprised that you're here. Like, that's fair.
Quickly, we'll go through the minutes. There's quite a few pages. Has anyone found any changes or amendments that need to be made? Seeing none, would entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Busenbark and a second by Councilman Allen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We have our public comment period at this time. Any individual could take up to 3 minutes and address the council. If you would, please come and stand here at the podium and state your name and your address, or just your name.
Is the camera on?
It's on.
Held out 450 east or 800 south. We got a beautiful new street. Love it. Don't like the cars speeding by, but that's not my object here. When the snow was removed from the street, it was pushed off to the side like normally. But now, so that snow has, the drain seems to have been blocked. I'm trying to clean some of that out. But now we got a little bit warmer weather, it melts during the day and then freezes. And I've got about 4 feet of ice in front of my carport, so I'm sure there's something I could have done. But maybe it's just a learning, since it's the first winter we've had with that, then we can look at that and see what we can do the next winter to make some changes.
Sure.
And I'm sure that there's plenty of blame that you know, I'm responsible for that. I tried to take the track and move us on this show, but I'm not too good with that. Maybe that's it. So, anyway, appreciate your attention.
All right. Thanks, Al. And I saw Kirby in the corner there taking notes, so I'm sure it'll get taken care of. Any others that would like to address the council?
What are we talking about?
This is a public comment period
For
for just whatever you want to
nothing in
complain about. Yeah.
Okay.
No, just hearing any comment or concern that the public have. We'll get to Moon Lake here in just a minute. So seeing none, we'll move forward. Now we have, well, it says a public hearing for a conditional use permit for Moon Lake Electric. Now, I'm the way that things have been done in the past is not exactly how was supposed to be done. So we're trying to change that culture and that mentality. When something goes before planning and zoning and is, especially a conditional use permit, and is approved, it's approved. Like, it doesn't need to come before the council for approval. And that's been tradition, but that's been erroneous. And so we're trying to change that. So we appreciate you being here. However, we are an appeals committee, and that's what our role is in the planning and zoning and that thing. So if there's a conditional use that's approved, but you don't like the conditions that are set, you can appeal those conditions. However, I would say that most likely we would not retract those, or we shouldn't as a council. And or if you didn't get approved and you feel like it was justified that you should have gotten approved, then we can see that as well. So does that make sense? So I know, Wayne, you're with Moon Lake. Unless you want to appeal the decision or what?
Well, I'm here on my personal.
Oh, okay.
I own property adjacent to that.
Okay. So what we'll do then, who's here to represent Moon Lake? Mr. Brotherson? Or,
That's what,
oh my gosh. You look, well, he looks like Dave Brotherson, or not Dave, but Brotherson anyway. But a little thinner. Anyway, if you'd like to, why don't you come up and and kind of address the council and kind of what you're doing, and then.
So I guess maybe a clarification on what you said. So did the planning and zoning approve this CUP with condition of this board reviewing it? Because I did not receive any word yay or nay, just that it was coming to this. So if you're the appeals committee and approving it, there seems to be some disconnect there.
Well, that's the thing is I don't know if the motion, Dean, were you at the planning and zoning?
But generally, it has come to council.
Yeah.
For final approval.
See, and
And that's why Pat is here tonight.
okay.
It's something that we might want to change in the future. I had to be at the doctor, so I wasn't.
Well, our ordinances are already written that way that once it's approved in planning and zoning, it's done. Now it's been,
One question, I did not get a letter for planning and zoning. I got a letter for this meeting only.
It wasn't a hearing. It was not required to have a public hearing in planning and zoning. Planning and zoning, what is who established the condition for a hearing?
Well, I specifically talked to you, Dean.
well, hang on just a second. Let's just go to the rules. Let's just go to the laws. Because that's what we're trying to get rid
I
of.
talked to Dean before the meeting, and he said there was no use of me even going.
Okay,
to the
just
meeting.
give us
No,
one.
I did not tell you that.
Okay.
I did not tell you that. You asked me for an obscure thing.
We're gonna stop right there. No arguments. First of all, what we are going to do is we'll give you an opportunity to speak. This is not a public hearing yet. So unless Pat has some concerns with the decision that was made,
First of all, I don't know what the decision was.
the decision was to approve it based on what conditions, Dean?
Okay.
Yeah, let's hear the conditions, and then I might take care of it.
Yeah.
With there, they issued, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, fine, go ahead.
They issued conditional on road access and construction. Chris mentioned 6 inches of road fill.
Okay,
I talked to Pat in their design for the site. The road has to be heavy enough to transport heavy transports, anything heavier than what our emergency vehicles will be.
okay,
So that issue was addressed.
okay,
Site obscuring fence. It was mentioned to me before this hearing, do we have anything in ordinances that require that? And we do not.
okay,
In fact, we have very little that addresses fences at all, but we do have a little bit.
okay,
A letter stating that they will install curb and gutter.
okay,
I would assume the curb and gutter issue would be whatever time State Street is improved, as far as maybe sidewalk and gutter. As far as anything going down the sides, I would say they're not required to, but something going down the front. Moon Lake's always been good to work with the city.
okay,
And or matching improvements with neighbors once the area is improved and developed. Then a turnaround for emergency vehicles. This site's gonna be large, and actually, I'm sure there'll be staging. This is gonna be a fenced enclosure, and that, there'll be for vehicles to turn around. Also, it was mentioned about a gate. I'm talking with Pat, and it's up to Mid Lake, but I think that they're leaning toward having a pull-off area where they can exit the street and then have it gated so the public is not accessing the site at all. Plus, if emergency vehicles are accessing this site, we don't want them going on site until it's deemed safe by Mid Lake. And they'll tell us when to go in. It would be a containment around the area.
Okay.
And then the final was notification to neighbors of a city council public hearing regarding this request.
Okay. So I guess that's why you're here.
Thank you.
And we have to apologize to a degree because we are going through some transition and we are trying to reset those things.
Sure, I understand. I talked with Dean and he filled me in on some of the stuff that you guys are facing with changes and.
Okay.
As far as, following what the ordinance are right now, I think as we talked, there was really nothing that, stood out to me. Like you said, our road is gonna have to be, we're packing in large transformers and, that road's gotta be stout enough. It's gonna be better than, and it really shouldn't be called a road, it's an access to our site. And that's why we're gonna put a gate out front.
Okay.
And limit that access going back in there.
Okay.
As far as the turnaround, stuff like that, if it's not a public access, I don't foresee a need to have that right now, because if we do have a fire, like you said, we'll deem it safe, and then they can go in the yard, and there's plenty of drive around and stuff in there with the equipment.
Okay.
So,
you're okay with the conditions that were discussed on the paper then?
so just so I'm clear on what we have, we talked about the road, which we'll deal with the road with our own design standards, which will probably exceed what is, well, it definitely will exceed what was listed in here. The curb and gutter is just an improvement along the State Street access there, and as I understand, that's probably handled through something like a public improvement district or something to that effect, so we would be pulled into that anyways.
Okay.
I don't see any issues with that as that develops. Read through the highlighted area here. We already talked about the turnaround. I think that's all that was listed in there that you have highlighted here.
The site obscurement fence is the one that's gonna be.
Yeah, and if there's
And that's
nothing
what
in
Wayne's
the
already
ordinances
talked about.
that requires that, then I don't foresee that as an issue.
Okay. Now, okay, well, is there any questions or comments from the council on this?
Which part of the road are we talking, State Street that they would have to reinforce, or their?
Do you have a map of where this will go, Ryan?
It's State Street.
Can you pull up,
Yeah, go to the next slide.
is it the next
Next,
one?
that's what I was looking at, wasn't it?
Yeah, so zoom back out. There you go. So this is, I'm gonna point over here if that's all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
So this is State Street here, north and
Right.
south. So the access road that we're talking will run across the north side here and
Okay,
into here. This is the road that will be built to our standard to handle our equipment. And then in your improvement for curb and gutter would be out here along this, like any other frontage for any other property owner,
okay.
as I understand.
Can you scroll up again, just so I can get my bearings on, or down,
Yeah, go to,
To the-
You want- there you go.
Yeah,
so I can see where that's at exactly?
so the red square is the site, and then along that black line.
This is pole line right here.
Yes.
Okay.
right,
So this would be the Maverick area, and you turn down Pole
Right.
Lane. And then this would be where we would.
The substation will be at the rear of the property. Isn't it about 1,000 feet roughly from State Street to?
East, I just put it on the eastern end as a demonstration, because we're not sure.
It's over 1,300 if the map's right, because the 40's 1,300.
No,
It's
there's,
ways back off.
It's way back there.
is that where that, there's another entity that owns some property just south of that
Brockbank.
Brock,
owns-
Brockbank
owns
owns,
two
we actually
sides.
bought that from Brockbank.
He
Oh, you
owns
did?
the south side and the east side.
okay,
And
He actually owns, correct me if I'm wrong,
the
Wayne,
north side.
he owns
Okay.
this strip here. Yes. And he owns that, you probably can't see where my big head is with. He owns this strip here. Of course, Wayne, the Mounter place is here. And then this is all Broadbank
Broadbank, okay.
Trust.
And fencing, you still have to have some sort of fencing, right, to protect the.
We have a requirement that we build under called National Electrical Safety Code, not the NEC, but the NESE. And it requires us to have specific heights and it'll be just basically identical to what we do in our other Roosevelt substation.
But it doesn't have to be,
Slatted.
yeah, solid or anything, so.
Any other questions from the council?
So for clarification, are you planning on doing site obscurement or not?
At this point, I'm proposing not. Because it really doesn't, it's not required under our safety standards or the design, and as I mentioned, if it's not required under the ordinances. This substation's being built by the consumer's rates. It's not a customer paying for it, so we're trying to control costs and do what we need. And slats, if I had to do it, would you call it a site obscurement? The slats would be certainly a more cost-effective method. To do a vanity type fence like you see in the cities is astronomical in cost.
So,
It'll probably be a chain link fence.
It is, yeah.
So they make those little
And there's
flags.
a reason for the chain link is because of the grounding requirements that we have.
I just recall seeing the substation before, and they got barbed wire. on the top.
Three runs of barbed wire on top for
so
line over.
Looking at the
you would tell us the
application,
height of the fence and tell us
The
the
fence
height of the
itself?
structures within the container.
Well, so we're bringing in 138,000 volts into that substation, so we have minimum ground clearances that we have to maintain. So we're gonna have some fairly tall structures in there. They're gonna be 35, 40-foot A-frame structures. A standard fence is 7 foot tall of mesh, and then another foot of the three runs of barbed wire.
Was this, I'm guessing that you have an engineer drawing or something like that of the structure?
Right now, we're still doing the planning because so we get our power from Deseret. That's the very big line that runs just north of this. And so we're looking at tapping one of the lines when they're coming in. And we're still working through them on how we need to configure that, so we don't have any of the structural designs.
I was just wondering if it was given to the planning and zoning, what
Show
the,
a little bit, I think the next slide.
Yeah, that's
Let's go one more.
One more is a generic plot, and that's changed since we.
but it
submitted
won't show an elevation view or
No, we don't
anything
have
like
any
that.
elevation views.
Right, and the gate right there is facing State Street.
Yeah, it would be facing the other way.
based on your application, this is a need because of the growth in that area and Roosevelt in general.
Yes, and what we run into is, so I've been with Moonlight for 6 years now. And we've changed the Roosevelt transformer. We have 2 transformers in there. We've changed that one once since I've been here. And based on loading, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark is my system engineer, we're already maxing that one out again. And what we're finding is all the growth down here along 40 and south of town with new elementary, this area down here is really stressed out the circuits that come off that. So our plan is to put this in and not only gain some capacity, but also give us some redundancy so we can limit outages, particularly with the hospital facilities, gas stations. We want to try and up that capability and redundancy as best we can.
Any other questions?
So for clarification, possibly you're meeting the requirement for obscure fields.
Did it read in here that was what they approved?
Yes. That's one of the other things in the act. So if you're doing something, you're appealing that decision.
Yes. If it's not in the ordinance, I guess I would ask for the field.
What's that?
Just a thought. I don't know if this is really, because it wasn't appealed and put on the agenda as an appeal, I don't know if we can actually, I wouldn't feel comfortable personally running today's meeting as an appeal.
Here are some results from a search.
That's our city council.
It is, but it has to be on the agenda that way. We'll talk about that. So let us, First of all, I want to clarify a couple things. And it goes back to some of the comments that were made, and then we'll open it up to the public for comment. And then we'll talk about whether or not we can make a decision, as far as an appeals go. But, on a conditional use permit, it is good practice, and we're learning better practices, and we're getting there. But how it should work is we send out the notice to the property owners within 300 foot of the affected area, 300-foot radius, and that would or should be in the planning and zoning meeting. However, if you refer to our ordinances and even state law, no public hearing need be held, as a matter of fact, for a conditional use permit. And that's in 178050 of Roosevelt's conditional use ordinances. And then if you look at state law, it's the same. So to address that, I know it's frustrating. The law states that you don't necessarily have to have a public hearing for conditional use. The nature of conditional uses are such that it's spelled out in our ordinances what is an allowed use, which definitely doesn't have to come before the Planning and Zoning Commission or the Planning and Zoning or the Zoning Commissioner, Building Inspector. But for conditional uses, it's also spelled out in our ordinances what a conditional, an allowed conditional use is in that area, and what items are there to mitigate the negative impacts. So as long as those are met, that condition, and it says in state law that conditional use shall be approved. It means the Planning and Zoning Commission job isn't to decide whether or not that can happen. Their job is to make sure that when a conditional use is issued, that those items set forth to mitigate negative impacts are followed. And so that's just an FYI. So there's, yes, go ahead.
I was going to say, so to sum that up, a conditional use is a permitted use as long as it meets conditions.
Yeah.
So,
And it's the Planning and Zoning Commission's job to ensure that it meets those conditions. And if it does, it doesn't need to come to us, only if there's reason for an appeal. Now, as far as that goes, let me look at the, so it says on here, conditional use permit, Moon Lake Electric. I don't know. Ultimately, it's the council that gets to vote and decide whether or not they're going to remove that. I wish we had somebody, we have Dean, but we don't have another member of the Planning and Zoning Commission here, do we? Did you sit in on that meeting, Ryan? When they made that motion to, did they make the motion to approve the conditional use permit and then based it on the things that we've heard? Now,
so my understanding is technically what they've required as conditions of approval have to be clarification of the code that's already there. So if the code isn't already there, if the law doesn't already state that they have to have a fence in these kind of situations, then technically they can do it without the concealment. We can't require that. As far as I understand, I could be wrong. I wish Grant was here.
no, I wish he was too, but in my understanding is that's not something that we even need to decide. That can be decided by Dean. That's it.
And like I told Lee, I mean, if this, making this an appeal meeting is sticky, we'll put the slats in, but just him not fight.
Well, I think that's a decision that he can make. We don't need to make that decision, I think, and therefore we don't even need to vote, honestly. But I would be curious to hear if those that are here with the public, if they have concerns. So Pat, we'll give you a break for a second, and then we'll open up, we'll consider ourselves in a public hearing. Yes.
Before we go, let me just make a comment. I did go back and watch zoning, and when they set the conditions, they actually went through the list of conditions on conditional use. And so they tried to pick and choose things out of there that might address the issues.
Those
That's how
impacts.
they kind of came up with some of this.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And I talked to the chair of planning and zoning, and also he mentioned the same thing, and he kind of walked me through that. So if there's anyone with the public that would like to comment, I don't know that it would change the decision, but we could at least pass those things on.
It's open public hearing.
So my question is, I guess, is there, if you're gonna approve this, how it says, I don't have any issues at all. I know Moonlight needs a sub.
Yeah.
It's a great spot for it, there ain't no doubt about it. That's the only thing I had was the concealed fence,
And that's, yeah, and I guess the question is.
that's the only reason I'm here was that, for that reason only.
Okay.
So do you mind if I say something?
Sure.
So because it's already in there as a condition of approval, you can appeal that decision if you like, but it's already in there, they put it in there. And I think that it stands until it's appealed.
So put the slats in. No problem.
Okay.
Don't you think?
Well, rates are going up. Blame.
Hey.
I might talk to you, I put them in for you too.
1%.
You know, and Pat, we want you to know that we value Moon Lake and what you do in our community. We really appreciate it. We don't want to be hard to deal with at all. And we're sorry that you even had to come to this meeting, honestly. And we are getting things worked out to where.
That's okay, just don't call me Brotherson.
You know what? I'm telling you right now. Well, I made 2 mistakes already in the meeting, but you look like, I can't remember his name, but you're a much thinner version of him. But anyway,
Brady.
yeah.
He works for me too.
Doesn't he? I'm telling you, I was
No.
like, dude, have you lost weight or what? Anyway,
He's got more hair than Brady did.
yeah.
So I just a follow-up question, or is there any more public?
No. And let's go ahead and consider ourselves back in the regular session.
I don't have a copy of the conditional use as a city council. Do we need to see those?
No.
Just so we're aware of the conditions?
We're not even involved in that. We're an
Okay.
appeals committee. and
That's what I'm
so-
asking, because I don't know, and this being still new to me, I just, I didn't see that anywhere, and so I didn't know what the conditions
The
were.
way it's set up is they have certain guidelines of how they operate that we've given them the authority to do that.
Right.
And so as long as they stay in that,
Okay.
if they go outside of it, then obviously we have a problem.
And if they do, and that's when somebody would say, no, that's not right, and then they'd come to
Come to
the,
us,
and then we would address it and look and make sure that it follows.
I just wanted to clarify that, because I didn't see it, so.
And there's some training, maybe we'll do some training here, but this coming month in March, we have it set up. Ryan's got it on the calendar. We're going to do some training with them because there's been several that have brought to us and different things, and we're getting that straightened out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, if there's no further comments on that, we'll move forward. Yes.
I probably should have brought this up in the beginning. Since I work for Moon Lake, I probably need to disclose that, and I don't know if I.
Too late now, you're on the hook.
Yeah, that's what I wondered.
Yeah.
If I'm, yeah, that's my boss.
Sorry,
So
I'm gonna put the slats in. For free.
that's what I'm kind of set back from the discussion about.
Well, and that's good. And I should have probably asked if there was a conflict. Appreciate you mentioning that. All right, so we have the human resources contract. This is a contract. Yes, sir.
If I may, just before you jump on to the next subject.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you listening to us. I understand you guys are going through some ebbs and flows here with your stuff. I've been in your seat for about 9 years at my previous location, and I think what you're doing with maybe shifting that public hearing to your P and Z meetings is gonna be much easier. Then this can truly be appeals.
Absolutely. And it'll be a lot better for the public too.
Yeah.
And that's why the commission is there. They're not elected, nor should they be, because sometimes elected officials can make decisions based on the election. And so they're supposed to be more objective, and that's to your benefit. And that's why all those things should be done there. Yeah, so thank you. And I'm glad you know where we're coming from. It's not a fun, easy job. So.
It's fun sometimes.
Yeah.
You may think you're John, so go sit in the P and Z chair for a while.
Yeah.
That's even worse with no compensation and telling people they can do what they want.
Oh, yeah. That's absolutely.
I was. Okay.
Okay, Ryan, do you want to go ahead and talk about the human resource contract?
So
this is the contract here. For those who don't know, Melissa, you're gonna see over there in the red, is,
Oh, you're,
that's
You're
Melissa.
looking at me, I'm like, he doesn't know why we're here.
no, I know your
I'm
husband.
Melissa, your husband. Everyone knows my husband.
So anyway, I thought I'd at least do a little introduction there before we get into this, but basically the contract, I don't know if all of you have read it and went through it, but pretty basic. With the duties, the objective, basically what we asked of her to do, it's in there. The term we put, so the first part of the term we put till the end of the budget year, so June 30th. I know that's only 5 months, it sounds a little weird, but we decided to do that to get it clean with the budget. That way, when we do a renewal, when we do that, then it'll be with the budget.
How long is the renewal for?
It was right here.
I guess it's here too.
We do it every 3 years and then
I think it's just 12 months.
12 months, but after that, didn't it renew? Well, it did, it automatically did a renewal, but there's a 30-day termination. So
Okay.
any time, either party can do a 30-day termination.
Okay.
I've been going through several of these, so I'm trying to keep them straight. I know that's another one. And then it's got her pay there, which she did real great with this. She was willing to work with us, and we basically kind of got to customize what was best for Roosevelt City. Another thing, so she is part-time independent contractor. We agreed to have 20 hours here. She's gonna be here every Thursday from 1 to 5. And at first, we were requesting just 2 days a month, but she was willing to come 4 days a month, which we like, so. And then she can be contacted anything through phone, email, even text, I believe. So that way our employees, if they need to get a hold of her, they can. And there's the termination right here. The notice. So, yeah, that's basically the gist of it. Is there any questions on it? or-
Just one, I have a comment and then I'll
Okay.
open it up for questions. Grant suggested Melissa, we had several apply, but Melissa helped and assisted with the county as well and did a really good job there. And I had a few questions and things that I wanted to see happen with certain things as far as the applications that we've already had and everything else. And I asked some questions and they're like, oh, she's already got it. She's already done that because we changed the job description with the recorder. And I want to make sure that they were informed and make sure that they were still interested under those circumstances. And it sounds like you've already done that. And so she's already working for Roosevelt City, just FYI, unless there's major concern with the contract. Yeah, it's already happening. So is there any questions, comments from the council?
I just had a question. There was the section about except for reimbursable expenses would be an addition, or reimbursable costs it says, but then there's an expenses section, talks about travel and things like that. What other things could be reimbursable costs that aren't captured in that expense section? Is there anything else?
No, I think Grant might have used his contract with the city as a template. So there's none that I foresee.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, would entertain a motion.
Move to approve?
I'll second it. Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilman White and a second by Councilman Baird. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Moving on, Melissa, thanks for being here tonight and excited to work with you and appreciate what you do for our city. We have the vehicle lease allowance policy. Who would like to present that?
Here's,
Not me.
I don't know if I need to scroll down. It's that little black thing they call a mouse right here. Goes up now. So part of my job is just to inform you and give you the facts and you make the decisions, right? So that's what I'm gonna do, and hopefully I have everything in line. So just to give a brief history, the vehicle allowance was, it's not new to the city. They had it since '89 to 2012. They had it for 23 years, and then here we are, 2020. So what I did, this was on the table 5-6 months ago, probably roughly. And it was on the council agenda a couple months ago, and I just didn't feel like it was the right timing. It was when the other guys was going out and the new guys was coming in, so we pulled it off. But basically what we did is we took the old contract and we had Grant kind of go through it and clean it up a little bit and just update it. So far as the policy and procedures, it is optional for the employee to do it or not. They don't have to, because it may not fit what they're doing. It may not be best for them. I'm just trying to hit the
Are these 5 people that fill these positions the only ones that this even applies to?
Is it 5 or 7?
Goes
maybe
through E.
6.
Okay,
Well, you got the city manager on the bottom too.
so 7?
Oh, okay, it doesn't list him on the lettered bullet point.
No, he changed it to the bottom there. So you actually have 6. Where are you getting 7?
Oh, I was thinking, for some reason, I was like, one of the other documents I was looking at, I was
Okay.
thinking 7, but 6, okay.
So the old one had basically the same people, other than the police chief that had 4 or 5 under him. I don't know if Rick's here. I can't remember who they were exactly. And then we just stuck with the directors. That's what it was before. So we didn't really change much. We just kind of updated
The
that.
one they had from, that ended in 2012.
Yeah. And then part of the requirements on there, they should have a vehicle that's 5 years and newer or less than 100,000 miles. They should be fully insured by the owner. And it should be suitable for that type of work. So I feel like it should represent the city in a respectable way, so.
Is there, well, I guess I'll ask the question now. Where it says the vehicle shall be suitable for work. So a lot of the department heads have trucks. I know you had a question on that, didn't you, Vince, as far as the cost of the vehicle? Because $36,000 is, for a car, is quite a bit of money. But I guess the question is there a maximum that we would pay? But if the position, I mean, I don't know if it was,
If it required a car versus a truck, like it don't seem practical for,
that person to be able to get
Yeah.
the full amount, and when they pick up a vehicle for 10,000 less than somebody that would actually use a truck, and then they just pocket the extra 300 a month or whatever it is.
yeah. I know the city manager, I do know there'll be 3 or 4 people. It's hard to say, because you can justify, I mean, I'm not the one that's gonna be receiving that, right? But Justin had an Explorer, for example. I thought it was a perfect vehicle for the job because it had 4-wheel drive still. You can still get out to the city, get the meetings. They got rid of it and was using their car. Well, they ended up almost getting stranded at Daniels because it snowed. So they turned around, couldn't make it up Daniel, turned around, went to Walmart and got cables and tried to do it. So I don't know.
I'm wondering, I guess the only thing I would say is where it says, and I didn't catch that when I read through it the first time, where it says vehicles shall be suitable for the type of work they need, I would probably set a little more strict parameters on that to say it has to be a four-wheel drive, something like that, to where they're pretty,
For the position or.
yeah,
So you're saying prescribe
certain aspects of the vehicle.
for each position?
No, just overall,
Just
because I think all the
overall.
positions, I mean, you have yourself, Kirby, Rick, city manager, and which ones am I missing here?
Yeah.
Zoning and
Water
building.
source director and,
One way you might do it is just say that it has to be equal to what the city would provide them. If the city wouldn't let them drive a car to do the work, then we shouldn't pay them to have a
That was
car.
the
Well-
bids I went and got from L&L and Murray Motors. I actually said, hey, I'm getting my same vehicle, I need 3 bids. So that's how I,
right, and I think every single one of those would require a truck, four-wheel drive, or at least a four-wheel drive, even the city manager's position.
4-wheel drive for sure out here. just
So-
Because of meetings in the city and stuff, but.
Would we still have, I know we have a vehicle available for other city staff to take to conferences and those types of things. It's the white GMC. Would we still keep and maintain one like that? Like the councilman jump in and run, because
I would
we're not
like
gonna
to.
jump in your personal. I mean, the city manager's vehicle, that's what he was using, and if I needed it, I'd just go grab the keys and go.
Yeah, I would like to actually keep something like that. That's,
I think we'd have to. So,
yeah, and in some of the meetings we have in town, we have people jump in, we go look at sites. You know what we do, so.
Something I might want to mention, this is optional, not required.
yeah,
So how much I saw the spreadsheet you put together for
Okay.
costs, but I'm curious what we pay on average for, and maybe it says it on there, I just didn't catch it, but what do we pay for city-owned vehicles per year?
So we calculated it out, I say we, because we did quite a bit of homework on this to get it more accurate, because the fuel, I mean, it was pretty tough to get the mechanic shop and everything into it. But we're around almost 9,300 for the city to pay for. And then I divided that vehicle cost into a 7-year period, only because with this in place, we would be on a 7-year rotation if we kept doing the same amount of vehicles every year with the city to replace them. So it's every 7 years. Hopefully you've gone through those main 25 vehicles that has personnel assigned to them. So almost 9,300, it was 92
For the,
for the city vehicle.
gotcha.
and it was 96.
9,600 for hose, which is pretty close over a year span, but we
$308 difference over a year per vehicle is what we'd anticipate. Would be an extra.
one thing we did different here, I do want to clarify too. I don't know if any of you caught on to it, but we left fuel out of it. Like a fuel card. So we rolled that into that 800. I don't know, I just felt like it was too much to go over and cover and keep track of. No fuel card in the employee's hand, it's all right there, they're responsible for their vehicle and their fuel. So,
Now, did Grant write in to the contract that, well, it's right there, employees who elect to use a personal vehicle pursuant to this policy shall use the approved vehicle for all calls, assignment. For business travel in excess of 200 miles one way, a city vehicle may be used, where the employee may submit fuel receipts for reimbursement. So that's the only fuel that they'd be reimbursed, is if they had a conference that was further than Salt Lake. We kind of went to 200 miles because if it's Salt Lake, not a big deal, but if it's in St. George or something like that, then they would be able to be reimbursed for the fuel, not mileage or anything else, but just the fuel costs. Otherwise, they're responsible for all their own fuel.
And on the old one, if you were to go by current fuel price and if they would use the full 100 gallons, the monthly would actually be $820. So that's if they use the full 100 gallons of fuel. But,
That's what the allowance is for the city vehicle.
yeah, that was off the old one also, I know that. They're pretty comparable, they really are from the old to the new. But I think we cleaned up a few things with Grant's help to make it more easier to follow.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so let me make sure I understand. So in lieu of purchasing additional city vehicles for those 5, 6 listed individuals, we would be paying them to use their personal vehicles X amount. What was I kind of saw the figures you ran. Do those figures include the actual sale of the vehicle at the end of its useful time? Did it incorporate that money? So if we have a vehicle for 7 years and then we sell it for $3,000 at the end, is that calculated in the usage of the vehicle?
No, that's a good point. That's actually one of the issues we're having with right now is that we've got 7 vehicles over 90,000 miles. By the time we get them traded in, we're only getting $9,000 out of them.
Would it be more equitable to actually sell them at
And that's
auction?
what we
or-
talked about today. I told him, yeah, auction them you'd get way more, well, not way more, but you at least double it. Yeah.
So my only concern is that not having the numbers, like this is what we're paying for vehicles, this is what we would be paying out per individual who chooses to use their vehicles. This is our savings. I mean, what's the advantage? What's the actual dollar savings that the city would save by going with this program, or it would just be a straight across wash?
It's pretty close. I mean, we tried to narrow that number the best we could, to make it as close and as we could too. I didn't put the $1,000, so really you could probably add another $100 to this 92 or less, so it'd be 9,200 instead of 93. We just traded in a vehicle. That's the only reason why I know. We just traded in one of our police. But there is perks to having, I think there's a few perks both ways for both parties in this. I've been trying to step outside of the box because I don't want to feel like I'm trying to persuade you. I'm just trying to tell you what it is.
Do you know why they stopped doing it in 2012?
That was my next question. Thanks, Dustin.
I knew I'd get asked this question, so I was a little uncomfortable, but I just don't think they liked it. They just felt, I felt like, we felt like it was a personal thing to them, like it was a perk, but at the same time, they took away several things, which I agree with. You know, they had vehicles going home outside of city limits and stuff like that, so it was mainly just the timing. And then the fuel was an issue too. It was,
So were they
it's hard to
just,
be accountable for the fuel, honestly.
and they had fuel cards, they could just
They
fill
had
up with
fuel
the same cards, but this doesn't include that.
That way they can't go and say, okay, I still have 50 gallons left. I'm gonna go fill up my 4-wheeler and my motorbike and a few 5-gallon jugs. So I feel like and Jared kind of helped us a little bit on that part, is leaving that out of it kind of cleans that up.
So will the vehicles be inspected annually by the city? And here's my concern. Somebody starts getting a vehicle allowance on they get a new SUV and then they let the tires go bald and pretty soon they're driving a different vehicle and we're still giving them the allowance. And they should be using that money to maintain it just like the city would with new tires and.
I agree, yeah. I know the vehicle itself has to be approved by the city manager. on what they decide to get. Not a bad thought.
I would, so that would be my recommendation, is to add a yearly inspection requirement, just to make sure it meets safety standards.
We probably should do that with our other vehicles too as well.
Wouldn't it be a bad idea?
Who would do the
We should
inspection?
put that in policy, maybe.
Another thing to consider too, just thinking, me personally, I'm indifferent. I don't really care. As long as it's not costing the city much more, and the employees are happy, that's good. But these are all good concerns, and something to think about tonight is, I mean, we don't have to make a decision to approve or not approve. We can table it for another council meeting. I mean, there's no rush. We do have budgets coming up in June, so we have a little bit of time to work.
Do we know if there's anybody that's wanting to do this?
Who would be on board right off the bat, I guess?
I believe, I would assume the city manager will, but I can't speak for him, but there's myself, Kirby, and Chief, Rick. Dean is still up in the air, or that's a no. Head shake,
I
so
want to
he's-
drive my rig here, get in the city vehicle and take care of business and get mine and go home.
So 3 right now, possibly 4.
There is one other thing that you did mention I'll bring up just because it did make sense to me. When they go, like, because I go Central Utah and those types of things, they have conferences, Roosevelt City has conferences, and we go out of town, and I'll take my wife. And if I don't want to take a city vehicle, I take my own, obviously. But if I was in their position taking a city vehicle, or if I had one the city paid for, they take a city vehicle, their spouses or whatever can't drive it when they get there. So they can take their spouse, but then they're kind of SOL.
Transportation.
They own their own and the city pays for it, but it's basically,
Still there.
yeah, then when they get there, their spouse can drive it. And all of that liability is on them. And so that's kind of something that makes a little sense. I'm just throwing everything out there. I'm not trying to persuade anyone because, again, I'm indifferent. It makes no difference to me, but just getting all the thoughts out there that at least I heard. So
And this policy can the city end the policy at any financial year? Or are we bound by the 4 years?
Was it a 4-year advance? No, like if you're gonna end the whole policy in itself. I think there's a 4-year, that way the employee isn't stuck with the.
I
Am I
have
wrong on that, or is that how it was?
How it was before was, if you had a 3-year-old
I
vehicle,
didn't see that.
you had a year, and they ended it, you had 1 year left is all, because it's a 4-year contract, so. Whatever vehicle you had.
Yeah, it says that they must, in section I, it says they must commit in 4-year blocks.
But that's not
Oh, is it?
per the city, right? That's not city manager.
I must be looking at a different one than you are.
Section I.
I mean, there's a,
Oh, yeah.
So if the employee leaves or the employee's discontinued, then it does end for that individual.
We should need to get into this deeper.
Yeah, theoretically, they should go 4 years there, if somebody.
Yeah, but-
Yeah.
if the employee decides to not comply with it too, it's 30 days right here. You know, but that's just him, that ain't the policy itself, so.
Yeah. Well, I would entertain the motion one way or the other unless there's other comments or questions. I mean, it may be we look at it a little longer, but I'll entertain a motion one way or the other.
I would say with the inclusion of a yearly inspection, like some vehicles aren't required to have a yearly safety inspection. But I'd say under this policy, if we just added a statement that said yearly safety inspection must be completed and maintained by the vehicle owner, and I'd move to approve it.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve with the addition.
Did you want
Of a
C
year.
to be more detailed? I I just got two notes here, so I didn't know.
Yeah, that was another thought there.
So I would just add it to C that, deemed appropriate by the city manager and then maintained neat and clean. It's like, well, it's neat and clean, but the tires are bald, or that would be my concern.
You're talking about adding four-wheel drive and those requirements under C. Is that what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I would say 4-wheel drive.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
So we have a motion now, just so everybody's aware, especially on something like this, we can have a motion, we can have 2 or 3 motions. I mean,
Right.
if there's some questions. So we have a motion to approve based on those changes in section C, 4-wheel drive and a yearly inspection by the city manager or city staff to ensure that it's well maintained. Did you get that motion, Carolyn?
I will.
Okay.
I wanted to just clarify because I'm a little slow here. But, so you guys buy your own vehicle, the city pays you the amount, and that goes towards loan payment. It was calculated, this amount, 9,000 was calculated with loan payments and everything in mind, right?
Yeah.
So the city's basically purchasing the vehicle for the most part, or is this a vehicle that you could already have and now you're just being reimbursed?
It has
That's
to
the
be,
case too, right? You could do
If
either.
it met those requirements.
yeah, as long as it meets the requirements, right?
Yeah, it's gonna meet requirements, and it's actually a payment you'll be giving the employee a monthly payment, so
Yeah.
they can pay for that vehicle.
Okay. And we've, what do you call it? Depreciated the value and kind of put that all in this sum. Because over time they depreciate a little bit and at the end they're gonna make some money off it when they sell it. But that's all included and
Well, that's what,
encompassed in all this.
that's what Vince brought up earlier,
Right.
that the vehicle will still have some value at the end of that life, but I don't think it's been calculated back in the difference of.
And it's, I mean,
The employee's vehicle will be worth more. The city,
Right.
probably when they
Because
try
they
to get rid
won't
of it, they have
trade
to
it
dump
in.
it. Yeah. But the individuals, they still have a vehicle that's
right.
almost.
So ours is
worth
just
it.
basically,
There's a lot difference in value in trucks resell and cars resell. Just FYI.
and so it's approximately 9,000 a year, 9,200 or 9,600 a year.
93, the
93.
city's cost.
96 is proposed, right?
Yeah.
And you're not requiring a lease, you just have lease allowance, but so they could lease or buy. That's not a,
Yeah.
Just as long as it
that's
meets the
up to them.
requirement.
If they want to lease, I mean, you're under certain mileage.
So we just have a set amount that hopefully covers things, and if you're willing to agree to that amount, you would use your vehicle to do your job here in the city.
Yeah, as long as it meets everything required and is best for the city, really, the city shouldn't have to worry about a penny going into that above and beyond what you're,
And it's about what we pay for our own vehicles anyway,
so we should be going down and washing on the city's dime. That's how I look at it. We should be washing on the city's dime. We should be changing our oil.
We're not paying insurance for it.
No.
No.
So I think it's,
So the liability, if they get in a wreck, that's not on you, that's.
They wouldn't need to be marked city either, because we don't want the confusion of.
right, that's what I was wondering. That's exactly, marking it as a city vehicle, we wouldn't do that.
No, because then they would be seen doing this, that, or the other, and then we would be like, why are they using our city vehicle to do this?
There is some city expense, if you have equipment that has to be installed.
yeah, I saw that. And that applies especially to you.
Weren't you roughly figuring about 50 a month was going vehicle and the other 300 was going for gas? I mean,
That's how
gas on 100 gallons, and I thought when you broke it down, it was roughly 550 going toward the vehicle, and the other was to go for the gas. And the
Gas and maintenance and.
Yeah, is it under
That's how it all
550?
off. So that's how the old one was, is 550 and then 100 gallons of gas, which is looking at 270 right now, but.
You have less than 550 a month though. if you're
But
doing
then you add
50
in their
right?
insurance and you add in,
Mhm.
and then we also have to realize and I'm sure that the city general liability insurance I'm guessing it's around $900 to $1,000 a vehicle.
For what the city costs.
Yeah.
Wait,
Insurance.
It's 380.
Oh, is that all? 380?
It's
I'm used to
380.
oil
That's part-
fields.
That's included in this.
Per year?
Mine is.
I wish I could get it that way.
What about, well, if they have the insurance, they take the liability, then if they're giving rides to, you know, if they have people in the vehicle with them, like other city employees going places, then that liability would be on them.
Does our contract need to spell that out? I guess.
No.
if they're-
It said, well, it says they have the
Yeah.
insurance, but I couldn't remember if it said they have the liability.
Like if
It's
they're,
B right there. It's
Can
on
be.
the-
does this, have we checked with our insurance company that insures our, like the city liability insurance, would they have a problem with this, you know?
It just reduced our liability is all, the city's
So
liability.
basically, they're
Yeah,
They're taking all liability in the vehicle other than when doing city work?
They're
So
still
if they got an
liable.
accident while.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering about. How that-
It would be on the employee.
I know, but
Is that law?
I understand you're saying that, but I don't know if legally that happens. I mean,
That's a question that we can ask Grant.
right, that's what I'm thinking is I would prefer asking I would think it would be, I agree, but I would rather ask and check just because I'm concerned that if you're on city business and something were to happen, does your insurance, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right, if it was your fault and the other insurance company says they were working for the city, and could they sue the city?
They're definitely going to.
Right, that's what I'm thinking.
They'll try no matter what.
Yeah, deep pockets and that's what they look at.
But we definitely reduce our risk exposure by not having a vehicle with a big Roosevelt City painted on the side of it.
Right, no, I
crash into
agree.
somebody.
I just like to check that.
Yeah, and we probably ought to get with
Still have to ask him.
our insurance agent. My thought is, I think it's something that is definitely looking to be approved, but maybe there's some questions that we ought to, but you, like I said,
I would
get answered by the next.
I would
council.
move to table till next time till we get our question, at least the liability question answered personally, but.
Okay. And then, one other thing that I was thinking of that we ought to bring up if we do that, with Grant, and it had to do with that, I can't remember, it was just a thought that when the employee has their own insurance, that's at least, you're almost dual insured. I mean, you have two insurances that you have to go through. Does that make sense? So that's a level of protection for the city, because they would go through your personal insurance first and then the city. But that's a good question. Any other thoughts or questions, concerns?
I second the motion to table it until next meeting.
Okay, and since that was the last motion to be made, that's the one we'll entertain. So we have a motion to table until we can get a few more questions answered for next meeting. That was made by Councilman Busenbark and seconded by Councilman White. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So that means the other motion is,
I'll update this and we'll have some questions.
I appreciate all your work though and having the costs and stuff. I think you did a great job on that.
If you need any of that, it's all right.
Like I said, I think the questions, just as you talk about it, you start thinking about other things. Thank you.
I think it's as long as we get her figured out before our budget, I think we're good to go. So, thanks, Ryan.
Thanks.
Ryan, what is the rotation? Is it after 90,000 or after so many years that they then,
5 years and 100,000.
5 years and 100?
With the
For this
City
one.
vehicles, yeah.
Oh,
or the employee vehicle.
No, the city vehicles, just currently what we're doing.
We're trying to do 3 vehicles a year,
Okay,
but we're at 26 vehicles with personnel assigned to them.
Okay.
So
I just noticed in your notes, you have 7 vehicles over 90, so I assume those are gonna be,
that was just a quick
Traded
stat that we can upgrade the fleet pretty quick. by doing this.
and you try to trade out first, or do you do any type of auction first, or?
We've auctioned them before and we've also traded in. I think auctioning's better personally.
I'm surprised that Moon Lake auctions their own trucks, what people will pay for a worn out truck. It shocks me.
Do you do it in-house or?
Yeah, we just stack them out in the yard and put out a public notice for a week, and people come to a closed bid, and highest
Ooh, that's a
bidder
good
takes 'em.
idea.
Well,
Closed bids are
We
good.
can do that. I know our employees would love it. We used to do it when I was first hired on. We done that, but then we stopped for whatever reason, I don't know.
And you, public has to understand, I mean, that, they can come start them and that's about it. They can't drive them around to look at them, but what they,
I would,
that's what they get.
I'd be willing to look at something like that again if that sounds like a good.
To go back to your other question too, just to add a little clarification. So he said they have 20, how many? 23? That you're
26.
26,
About
3
8
years,
years.
so
Over 8 years.
almost 8 years. And then how many miles are they averaging by the time we get to that point?
They're all over 90.
Yeah, so what they're saying is 5 years.
Usually in the 100.
I think it's, I like the proposal because I think that takes a lot of those miles away from us.
People still pay the
Right.
$4,000 for
Right.
it.
No, I think the overall proposal, like I said, my only concern was the liability, because I'd be worried if we're on city business out and does your insurance, or people are gonna try to still go up to city, do we need to have a little insurance, and will our insurance cover that kind of thing?
And will we
I think it's a
reduce
good
the
thing,
fleet?
because I don't like having all the vehicles, but I know we
Okay.
need them, but if we could get rid of some of them and have them back on the employees, that would be much better for us, I think, in the long run.
And Ryan just said, that's the question I asked them. So they would reduce it by the number of vehicles that they do for the private, which would be good for the city.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. I just want to make sure we have the information to make a good decision. And I like the 4-wheel drive. I think that one definitely needs to be in there.
Yeah.
So, and the annual inspection. Good call.
Great. So next item, the policy ordinance revisions to city code. I thought Grant was going to be here tonight.
Yeah, he's gonna come by, but I guess he's probably
Well,
watching it.
since I think you put that on the agenda, we'll let you go ahead and take that one, Councilman Barrett.
Okay. So, Councilman Riley and I, a couple months ago, met together and had some ideas for some changes to our Title II. We felt that they were changes that would benefit the public members of our community to vote. And so basically I've been meeting with Grant. I've met with them twice over the last month or so, just doing the revisions. And so we've kind of gone through Title II and taken out some things and added some things, but it's really regarding the responsibilities of the mayor, the city council, and the city manager. And my hope is that we can, as a council, discuss any changes that you guys want to the changes that I made, and then maybe present this next month for public hearing. So that's my hope tonight in putting this together. But, I sent it to the acting city manager and the council. Hopefully you've all read it. I can outline some of the changes if you'd like. I know that the red line won't come through as hoped. So I'll do the best I can in outlining the changes, and if you have any questions or want to see
You don't
changes.
have the red line?
Can we open a red line? Do you have to download it and open it in Word? Because the email wasn't opening a red line version.
Mine was.
I need to get in my office and put on the P drive and it'll be on, so.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't tell you to do that before the meeting.
I would prefer if we waited and
Yeah.
got that.
You want
I
the
do
red
have
line?
An old draft.
I don't know if it worked.
I can, let me.
The red line works, you just have to have the right settings on your,
Email?
no, on your Word.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
there's,
the mine, it didn't open in either one. There was 2 documents.
yeah, on your settings, on your Word program, there's a couple settings that say mark or show marked, and you have to click that and it'll
Okay.
show
I'll
them.
have to go back and check it.
The second one, it wouldn't, but the first one, I saw the red line version, so I
You
could
did
see
see
all
it.
the.
It has to be there because it's
Yeah,
way
I'm
bigger
thinking it's just
file.
opening
in
the
the email.
It's there.
wrong. Yeah. So you have to actually open it in Word and turn on the red line feature.
Yeah.
That's good to know for future reference. I didn't, like I said, both look the same to me, so I thought, how come we sending 2 files that are the same?
I agree. I have the same issue, so. So I can go over, I can start going over it while he's working on it. So the first section, basically in our original code, it said that there's Office of City Manager, and in the new version, it says the same thing, other than it adds in, he shall be the chief actually, that's all the same, I think. The chief administrative officer of the city, acting under the oversight and direction of the mayor. So before it didn't say, he acts under the oversight and direction of the mayor.
One of the things that I saw in this, and it has to do with the job description that we created, and Melissa will probably be able to see it, but in the job description, it mentions him as chief operating officer, which is basically the same. I just think that ought to be consistent. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So he's mentioned as chief operations officer, I believe, in the.
I think he's actually, in the old code, I think it said that he was the CEO, if I remember right.
Yeah,
I
which
could
is.
be wrong.
You need to turn on check the red line.
Yeah, well,
So right there where it says review. Simple markup, go over there. Yeah, show markup. It's all clicked. So it should, you should
oh
be
yeah,
able
it
to
should
see
be,
it.
okay. So yeah, just go back to it and scroll. Let's see if it works.
It's not.
No, it's not there already.
It's not there.
And is this the correct one? Go to track changes really quick. That's just the changes you make actually. But click on the down arrow on the track changes.
To the
The
left.
one
To the left. There you go. Just click
on
track
track
changes and see if that does it. No.
Yeah, this is the.
Okay. I can.
Go to simple markup and see if you can change that drop down. All markup. There you
There
go.
we go.
I knew it had to be
So
there
this is-
somewhere.
Yeah, so look through it.
Let's go back to the first.
Let's just-
one.
should we just-
Go through it, yeah.
Yeah. So you can see the change in the first one. Anything in red would be additional to what was already there.
The other thing one thing I stayed completely out of this except for a couple of comments and just conversations that I had with the city attorney, because I knew Councilman Baird was wanting to do this. So I let him know how cautious I was about it. But one of the things that our city manager did mention is that this was changed right before I took office, and a couple times I think, and I wish he was here to speak for himself, but he felt like the changes were very heavy in the city manager's side, and he felt like it was important that we swing the pendulum back to a more balanced level. And so as he was meeting with Dave Baird, I just let him know that, say, I know Dave has some ideas, but please be very objective in the recommendations that you
And
make.
as we went through this, we tried to be as reasonable as possible. Also, creating that position of city manager, he has to have some of the executive authorities. And so there's a whole list of them in there that he does have. But what I thought was important just for the voters is that the mayor who they're voting for has a say in what happens in the city. And so that by giving the city manager or the mayor oversight and direction over the chief administrative officer, which is the city manager, then it provides kind of a balance. The city manager can go out and do his job and work hard on behalf of the city, on behalf of the council and the mayor, but the mayor can have some oversight and direction. I'm not sure when they took that out of the code, but I feel more comfortable with it in there.
It was in the code before.
It wasn't in the code before. So our mayor,
But you said it was taken out.
I suspect, yeah, because when you create a 6-member council, it's by default in state code. That's one of the things. And then maybe they did it right when they did that. I don't know history.
So the reason, and I brought this up to David when I was running, was what had happened, and I saw this happen before Mayor Byrd took office, was, if you look at the state code, I'm like, what should a mayor be doing? What should a city councilman be doing? And the state code shows, a page and a half for mayor and almost a page of city councilman or member. And then when I looked at Roosevelt's, it's like the city manager had a page and a half of things he could do. The mayor had a little over a paragraph, and each council member had a very small paragraph. And to me, it didn't reflect what the state said should be the kind of the standard. And so that's why we went back and started looking at this, like, how should it be? And I think most people's concern these days is we've got people who are non-elected officials providing too much government regulation and things like that. The FDA, the Environmental Protection Agency, they're not elected individuals, and they just go make rules that we have to abide by, and we can't fire them through election. And so we wanted to make sure that the city mayor's responsibilities kind of reflected what the state did, and that there was, with a new possible very talented city manager coming in, we gave him what he needed to do, but still made sure that the mayor would always have immediate oversight. And then one of the things you'll see that was added that I really like was any of us can go to city employees and say, hey, can I get a copy of that whatever? Whereas the environment that kind of existed before was like you had to go through the city manager before you could even approach an entity in the city to get information as an elected official, which to me that didn't seem right.
So your guidance came from basically the state code or state direction for mayor, et cetera?
Basically,
With
these
grants inputs, yeah.
These are in addition to the default 6-member council in the state code. These are some of the more clear things that we've added in addition to that code. And so the state code says that the mayor is the CEO, but
The only question I had on the first one was just that it's just the mayor, the city council.
So
I'm not trying to be,
No,
I noticed, yeah, JR, I'm out. I was just wondering because later on you do talk about city council, but then on this one you did, and I just was curious.
I can speak that one because one of the things that's been interesting for me over the last 6 years that I've been involved with being on the council and then working through everything is that just like in our planning and zoning, tradition has really taken over how we function. And then I've learned a ton looking back in the state code. I mean, we're changing our treasurer position, we're changing our finance director position and our recorder position because state code dictates what those are supposed to be doing, how they're supposed to be appointed and hired. And so we've really gotten to where we've been run by tradition. And I think historically, the city council has acted like administrators. They've been involved with the administration of the city. They've been involved with the decision-making and pointing fingers and telling. But in all actuality, in a 6-member form of government, you have the mayor and the council. The council holds the legislative duties. So they just make the laws. They create the laws. And the mayor holds the administrative duties. And so.
But the administrative duties can be delegated to the council in a 6-member. So
correct, but they can be delegated. And so, and I'll get to that in a minute, but I think as council members, we feel like we want to be administrators, but really we're legislators. Okay. And then as far as the mayor's position goes, the reason I like I don't care really about much of anything except for down below where it talks about the mayor being invited to the meetings with the city manager. I feel like the mayor and the city manager should be tied at the hip. Those guys are married. I mean, because it's one and the same. The city manager position is derived from the mayor's authorities and things that he's elected to do. And so that's what I like about it is before there was an ability for either one of us to kind of unilaterally do things without the other one. And I didn't like that at all. I wanted to make sure that we were both, yoked together and doing things together. And I think that's why that first statement is there, is because it's really the mayor's responsibility to, by state code to make sure those things are done. And if we hire a city manager, I don't feel like I can't shirk my duties and responsibilities to the public just because I have somebody there. We're still.
You're elected to make the change.
So this is, just making sure to clarify, so this is basically following what the state code would say that we should be doing. So we're just basically cleaning up the language and making sure that we're following state code. And you guys have already gone through that and verified that?
Yes, this does,
Just with showing it to the attorney, he knows more of the
in
legalities.
fact, Grant drafted this form. A lot of these deletions actually are added in later on. It's just he felt it was easier to delete a whole section to redo it. So,
Okay.
so some of those deletions are actually not, he just felt that it was easier just to put in new verbiage and not try to work the verbiage and redline it all today.
So a reference to state code that talks about our form of government is code 10 3B 301, and that talks about the 6-member council. And then it talks about the mayor's in 10 3B 302, it talks about the mayor's responsibilities. And then 303 talks about the council's responsibilities. And anyway, so those 2 pages are found there, but there are other areas that's found, but in section 10 or title 10 and 3, but title 10 has all the municipal laws there, and then 3B mentions the forms of government, and then there's one other section I think that spells out a few more things, but
Yeah, this just basically, in addition to, we default to state code, but this clarifies the city manager's responsibilities, whereas the state code doesn't.
Personally, looking through it, the only question I had was the first one, and I wasn't trying to be rude. I just
Oh, no.
wondered why it was just the mayor, where other things like, it's under the city council direction and things. But I have no problem if it's following state code. I think that's the important thing, is if we're meeting those mandates. I know in the past, the mayor in Roosevelt has been more of a ceremonial position, and I think that's part of the problem. Like you said, it's the tradition, and I'm not trying to here to support tradition or whatever. I'm just trying to make sure I clarify, understand what's going on. But I think bottom line is, if the state code says this is where we should be, then I'm 100% behind that, because I think that the state has already done a lot of that work.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. But on the same token, there are going to be probably some what's the word, learning curve, as you said earlier, when we were talking about other things.
Yeah.
Is that adjustment is all. And so I don't, like I said, I don't have a problem with it. It was just a clarification on anything. So I did look through it. I thought it was very concise. It seemed, well written personally. So I didn't have a problem with it.
Can I mention one other change that's a big change that we should definitely discuss, and it's term limits. In here is the proposal to add term limits for both council members and the city manager.
I didn't have a problem with that either.
I like that.
Yeah, I think it should be honest with you. I'm all for it.
Okay, good. I'm with you too.
Yeah,
One thing that Dave called me and asked about is, I took over halfway through a term. And that was the question. He was concerned affected me and not everybody else who's elected to a 4-year term. And the problem I see with limiting it to a specific number of years is that I would not, like, if I wanted to run again, I could only serve 2 years of the next 4-year term. And that's gonna discourage, I think, some people.
I think we ought to put in there
2 full terms.
2 full terms.
And that's the suggestion I gave
I
today.
think that's a good.
But here they're counting
I saw that.
couple of years. And so if we not that I care, but other people may want to serve again.
Well, you and I are in the same boat, because I served 2 years and resigned due to health issues. And so technically, this would be my last term.
Well, it
And I don't
also,
know that.
in 16 years, you can wait so many years and be able to run again, but.
Yeah.
So I think you could just take out that last sentence. So it said, a person elected or appointed after the effective date of this section to complete the term of another person shall be counted. So I think what you're saying, Dustin, is
Or you
that,
could say
like,
shall not be counted.
That's what I would say, shall not be counted. So his 2 years wouldn't be counted, then he can do 8 years, which would be 2 terms. And I wouldn't say the word terms
agree with
because
that.
terms might limit you to 4 years because some of the terms are 2-year.
But I still agree, I think term limits is something that needs to be in there. So that didn't bother me at all. Like I said, I was just curious about the language on the one thing is all really, that was it. And I just thought it was curious because, again, we're probably mostly going back to tradition of what I understood had happened in the past more than anything, so.
A good indication of that tradition too that I was going to share is, what was I thinking? Well, it's probably not important, so I'll think about it later. But anyway, there has been a lot of tradition, and that's what it was with the finance director position. He was hired by the city manager, has been for the last however many years, and then we learned in state code that the recorder is the finance director actually, and you can create a finance director position, but if you do, again, those authorities are derived from the recorder, and that position has to be appointed as well by the council. And so instead of hired by a city manager. So there's those checks and balances that are in our state code that keep us everything how it should be, and slowly tradition and those types of things creep in, and pretty soon we're doing our own thing, which isn't awful. It's just we have an opportunity to clean it all up, and I think it's.
I'm all for cleaning up. I don't have a problem with that.
So if we make a motion tonight to move this to public hearing, we can still have some time to discuss it as a council if we see other changes we like.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's not a done deal until it's approved. But
And then it would go to the public too for the 3-week
Was there any other
period they can look at it, right?
discussion or questions?
yes,
Keep in mind, when the public notice that there's going to be a public hearing specifies that they can review the ordinance in the office of the city recorder, which means it has to be finished for them to even review it.
Okay, but once we get into that meeting, we'll have a tentative
So-
draft that's considered a finished version. We don't have to approve it in that meeting
No,
exactly, right? We can still make changes at that point.
well, what I think we ought to do is make the changes to shall not be counted. What was the other suggestion? Was there another suggestion?
I think that was it.
Okay.
Well, you have it on the mayor too, right? Because it'd be the
Yeah.
same thing. You'd have to change it on the.
I think
On the
that
mayor.
term limits should, I don't know, how does everyone feel about this? But what if we do term limits for council members, but if a council member after 8 years wanted to run for mayor, would they have that eligibility, or would we make it so that they couldn't run for mayor? I think that the mayor and councilman are 2 different positions.
I would agree, and I don't personally have a problem if someone wants to do that.
I mean, it's the people voting, right? So
Right.
So you can still do that then.
Yeah.
You could stay in office.
16
power
years
to
in a
them.
row.
Well,
No,
the way
indefinitely.
that it's written, it says no person shall serve.
Because you could
um,
serve 8 and then 8.
And
If we separate them, then you could serve 8 as a mayor, 8 as a city council, 8 as a mayor, 8 as a city council. To me, it is different, but I can wait 8 years to run for city council if I wanted to. And that gives somebody else an opportunity. I mean, we get paid so much, I know people are.
they're breaking down the door to come work here.
But
Um,
I don't know.
I would like to discuss it more because I personally don't have, heartburn over that if somebody wanted to, but I can see your point. I would say that maybe we need to say if they do that, then they would have to wait
Yeah,
after. In other words, if they did the city council and then mayor, or did mayor then city council, maybe then you'd add a stipulation they have to wait 8 years to go back. Because the idea is we don't want, lifetime, not that it's a moneymaker or anything, but just the idea we want other people to
thoughts,
serve.
ideas.
Yeah,
needs, yeah.
so I don't, but at the same token, I don't have heartburn if you're changing from city council to mayor, especially if the people voted for that, I think that should be considered, but.
So the way to fix that would be the wording for the mayor could not run for elected city positions after serving as mayor for 8 years, you know what I mean, in the 16-year
I
period.
just think we need to, just play with the wording there as well, but.
Okay.
Or if somebody wants to serve as mayor and the council, then they can serve 4 years on the council and 4 years as mayor.
Well, that's already taken care of because within a 16-year period.
Yeah, but what he's saying is you could go 8 years city
Right.
council, 8 years mayor, and then go back 8 years city council. And
I don't think that's gonna happen.
I can't imagine that
Just
happening, but
wait.
I don't mind putting some wordage in there for that, but at the same token, I don't have heartburn over that one.
Well, let's do this.
Not that I'm planning to run for mayor, because I don't want to.
Let's do this. We'll meet with Grant on Tuesday. So can we,
We have to motion as a council to
Yeah.
do this as is or with certain changes.
well, that's.
Because when it goes out, it has to be a final
You
draft.
think we need to wait on the draft till the
No, no, all we have to do is motion that we will
Move it to a public hearing.
move it to a public hearing, and then we can
Still.
modify, because we're not pre-approving this actual
Is that
document.
the public hearing when somebody
We're
makes a
just-
motion after, they can say with these changes?
Yeah. So what we'll do, we'll need to
I'll
have.
move to have the public hearing on this.
Okay,
Is that a motion?
That's a motion. I'll
In the
move,
next
I so
meeting.
move.
I'll
For the
second it.
next meeting.
okay, so we have a motion by Don Busenbart, second by, you got it?
Like this?
Vince Riley. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now what we'll do in between now and Tuesday is any of these thoughts or ideas, please get them to Grant.
Yeah, CC me on it.
Yeah.
Email
Okay.
me and Grant, yeah.
And then
I just like to-
we'll come up with a semi-final draft that will then be included with the packet before the next meeting.
I'm with that. Like I said, I really didn't have a lot of heartburn over it. I just had questions on the one, and I actually like throwing limits, I told you. That one
I'm
didn't
all
bother
for
me at
that.
all. I think we need more of that.
I think,
didn't
I think if Grant were here, he could explain to us why he put it that way. And it might
Can you,
actually answer-
Ryan, can you slide that
Yeah.
over a little bit? There's the note there from
I thought he
Grant.
was going to be here.
On
See
right
the,
there,
see the note on the right? Just slide it a little to the left so we can
moving
see
The provision from the city manager section.
and renumber.
Okay,
This provision from the city manager.
anyway,
Huh, okay, that doesn't explain
I'm
it.
good.
I'll make sure he's definitely to our next meeting. Okay, if there's no more discussion on that, let's move on. We have, if I can get back to my,
Thanks for getting that, by the way, Ryan.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't have.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, you're right. I'm glad you found it. And I learned something tonight, so I know how to check that next time.
and you know what, one thing that I'd like to start doing, because really it'd help with the education and all that is, we can throw out like state code and where it's found. And I mean, being able to utilize that is super, super helpful.
No, I agree. I think that's a good point.
And could we have, I'd like to see when we're going to talk about a conditional use, see the document that like Don was talking about, see that document that had those requirements so that I could review it before the meeting too.
Well, and we should have that, and we should have had that, but technically we will never see those again unless it's
Okay.
appealed.
Okay.
It should never come
So-
before the
so-
council.
What you're saying is if it's if they want to appeal, they'll get on the docket, then it would be in our packet, right?
Correct. And if not, then.
And it should be in
we
our
wouldn't
packet
even
if it's appealed.
read.
Okay.
Right. And we wouldn't even know about it otherwise. And I can tell you right now, I have a lot of faith in our current commission. I don't think we've ever had a planning and
No.
zoning commission as well versed as they are now.
Okay.
And we
Okay.
just made some recent changes to that, and those guys know what they're doing. We have engineers, we have building inspectors, we have,
No,
it's,
I'm good. I was just kind of caught off guard not knowing what the conditional use was.
yeah.
And that's why I'm with Vince. I'm like, it would have been
When I
nice to know.
asked Brian what I said when I saw it on the agenda, I'm like, why is this even on the agenda? We shouldn't even be talking about this. Are they coming to contest it? What's going on? But it's
But
just
they did-
tradition that we're
They
breaking
did
down.
put a COA in there, or a condition of approval that required a public hearing, and that's why we had it.
Well, and legally, we don't have to. That's why I read it out of our ordinance, but I feel like it's appropriate that we do in most all circumstances. Purchase orders and purchase orders, did you guys have a chance to look over those?
Cool. Question. So on the letter from Siddons Martin, it looks like it's a bid for the scuba, the tanks and stuff, which is fine. It shows for 39,468, but it's written in pen 46,256, and then 48,000 is what we ended up paying, which on the, if you look at the account statement, whatever that we did, it says 48. I was just wondering how we have a typed and then we have a handwritten.
The official bill itself hasn't came in. It is gonna be below 48. So Vicky just wanted to put 48, so it was approved. That way when it came in,
Were they just thinking maybe getting more than 6 or something, or?
yeah, we were trying, the vendor just couldn't get it fine tuned right where we wanted it. We were trying to get the amount of packs that we could for 48.
So it's not to exceed 48,000.
Not to exceed.
And so you're hoping maybe to get 7 then? Is that the plan?
Yeah,
Because it says 6 for 39, but then you have 46,256 and then the 48,000 just written in pen. So the plan is to get 7. So you've got 48,000 budgeted. So the idea is it'll be probably less than that. Do we need 7? Is that a?
well, this is something that Lee has on his 5-year plan, so every year he's trying to get rid of the old that are outdated,
Okay.
get us back up to code with the updated packs. So these are SCBA's, the tanks that the firemen use.
Right.
And I think he's trying to hopefully sneak a 7 in if he gets the other 6 for a lesser rate. Too, does that make sense? Kind of use it as leverage as far as the 48.
Okay, it's close, yeah. Okay. All right. That was one I was concerned because there's the handwritten, then there's the bid, and I just didn't understand what that was. So.
Good catch. Any other questions?
Just want to say, I like that you're passing forward the invoices. I think it's great.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. That's usually not been done in the past.
No, I think it was good. That's why I said I wouldn't have caught that, it was just helpful to me to understand. I assumed, based on the amount, that's what I told Dustin. I said, I bet they're trying to get a 7th one, which is fine. I just didn't know.
Yeah, we're trying to work it, we'll get a little discount there, but whether Lee can work his magic, I don't know.
I thought maybe Lee just needed an extra 7,000 or something.
Hey, you do need the floor painted. Maybe you slipping that in there. So, if there's no other questions or comments on the purchase orders, would I entertain a motion?
I move to approve purchase orders.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilman Waite,
Riley?
Riley. That's why I stopped.
Look at my hair.
I
Just look at
know.
my hair every time you look over here.
And second by Councilman Allen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I almost did that at the beginning of the meeting, and then I have to sit there and look at you for a minute and like, okay. Reports from standing committees. What we'll do, I know there's not a lot of, so I have a preliminary, and unless there's major heartburn with any of these, I'll move forward with this. This isn't something we vote on. This is just assignments that are made. But if there are any heartburn with this, just let me know and we can address it later. But currently, so here are the different areas, and I kind of simplified as much as I could because we have the RBA, we have the Chamber of Commerce, we have all these different organizations that the council were meeting with. So what we've done is we've created with the Park Committee and the Economic Development Committee, we've really combined the majority of all those other smaller meetings into one. And so I talked to city staff today. We're going to have city staff to our Economic Development Committee meetings and to our park meetings. Therefore, all the information that would be disseminated in those other smaller meetings will be disseminated in that larger meeting. And so that really kind of streamlined everything for the council. So here are the areas I feel like are currently needing to be filled. And then I have the suggestions. So we have mosquito abatement, park, airport, EDC, which is the economic development, safety, water, and city beautification, and then Utah League of Cities and Towns, keeping us apprised of that. So mosquito abatement, we have David Baird. Park, we have Cody Allen and Don Busenbark. Airport, we have Vince Riley and myself. Economic Development, we have Dustin White and Vince Riley. I figured, Dustin, that would be a good one for you where you're working with the other cities and things to come to that one. Safety, David Baird. Water, Cody Allen. City Beautification, Don Busenbark. And Utah League of Cities and Town, Dustin White. So that gives everyone 2 responsibilities, basically.
My wife's gonna be shocked you put me in beautification. I have no clue about that kind of stuff. I'll have to have her help me.
Yeah.
She'll
Well, there's
educate you.
community members, I know that.
I was gonna say, if you
No,
want
no,
something else, we're
I'm
good.
happy to take it, don't worry about it. I'm just laughing because, I'm the last guy. You saw my shorts when I used to wear them when I coached football.
Those are beautiful.
Get your wife involved.
Yeah.
Or, and I know, Councilman Baird has an interest there. You guys.
Vivian and Keith Winterton, you know them?
Oh, yeah.
They're very interested in the beautification of our city, and I know she's in the past kind of put together a little committee and with the support of the council at the time, so she might have some things to go off of. We do the cleanup day in the spring. I've actually sort of not really done a great job at it, but been over this the last 2 years.
Like I said, you can,
Yeah.
we can have more than
I'm happy to
one,
help you out, too.
Okay.
as long as we don't have more than 3, more than 2, I guess. So,
No, I may just ask for some advice on it. is all.
and I can have David on there if he's willing to do that. And you
Do
both
they have a
can.
group that
Yeah.
meets or anything, or are you just kind of in charge of it?
You just plan, like if the city beautification, you just come up with a plan. I've worked with city staff, of course, because they're the people that make it happen, so.
You usually try to do the cleanup around the week that the county gives the free dumping. So the timeframe is already set, you just gotta figure out projects and how to get it going.
So, what I'll do, the next is I'll put this on a spreadsheet, send it out to everyone with the meeting times and everything else, so that it's, will be fairly easy for you to.
I'm curious, I've been over or with safety for the last 2 years, but I've not been informed of any meetings that were going on.
Do they do you meet with the police chief?
We have a safety meeting once a month.
Okay. Will you just send me an email a week or so in advance, just make sure I know about that?
And what I'd like to do, Ryan, is maybe you and I can get together and we'll just make a spreadsheet of all these meetings, times, and then the assignments and send it out to the council. So if there are.
One of the things that you didn't mention on there was, and maybe,
Right.
no, the planning and zoning.
Oh, flip. Yeah, you're right.
And I can still do that,
Where's
but
that
I
for?
don't make it to all the
Where's the-
meetings.
That
So
is,
it's
they're
for
at 5:30,
conversation for
which
retreat.
is somebody
What time, what days?
on Tuesdays.
Tuesdays?
The first
I could do-
No, no.
Tuesday.
First Tuesday, it's the first Wednesday.
First Wednesday
Oh,
at 5:30.
Wednesdays are hard for me right now. I can set it up so they're not, but right now they're hard for me, but I'd be willing to,
Do you wanna,
This would be under
yeah.
and I could try to tackle that one too, I guess, but
It's only once a month.
theater
it
outdoor.
is once a month.
Yeah. If I know ahead of
It's for
time, I
theater,
can
so it'd
adjust
be-
my schedule maybe a little bit.
This
I need to be there a little more
Usually-
I wish
often.
there was a way to hit the
30 minutes long.
little arrow and just go to the next one.
I'll put you there, Don, and then I'll try to make it there too, because it's not a conflict
There was a thing
for me to
about
be there. Any of them.
No, I just teach class Monday, Wednesdays at 5:15, but I can always tell them I'll start late or do
Okay.
something a little different. I mean, so.
And I'll try to make
If
it.
it's only
close.
once a month, like I said, I can adjust them. If it's the first Wednesday, actually works out well. That's spring break in March, so I don't have class, so I can make it that first one in March. It'll be April, and I can just tell them, I can just plan accordingly or miss it, but then after that, I'll look at my schedule.
Okay.
Did you get finance and audit on there?
Oh my goodness, that's you and I too.
Yeah, we've been doing that, so.
That's the only other one, yes.
Mayor, have we decided to put UBIC under Arts Park and Rec?
Not yet. We'll have
We
a,
used to have a councilman over UBIC too.
And Red Mud.
but Red Med Run will be under the Arts Parks and Rec. I feel like if we do UBIC under that right now, we'll have mutiny on our hands. So thank you for reminding me of those. This was kind of a quick and dirty. And Dave, you and I have been over finance. I guess we'd stay that way unless you want to change that. Unless there's
I'm
somebody else
happy
that's
to, I
interested.
mean, I'm comfortable with
The
whatever.
other
it
one,
is.
Joe was on, what was Joe? What did he do?
He was on the capital projects, but the capital projects will be taken care of with the economic development. And then there was also a arts and parks, but that's also going to be taken care of in just that one meeting.
Recreation.
Mhm. There was Chamber of Commerce, there was RBA, but those two also will be taken care of under the economic development. And
And basically, like, when I go to the safety meeting, my role is just to bring public input to it, like, or observe, or, I mean, I don't give orders, obviously,
No.
because that's not my.
to observe and then be a liaison between the public and
And the safety.
those,
the
you know,
chief and stuff.
any
Okay.
safety concerns, we can funnel them through you too.
And even though we may bring up a concern, it doesn't mean that we're giving you orders. Sometimes it might be heard that way.
Yeah, because he's the one that did the intersection, see?
Right, yeah,
That's
I'm
what
not
that's
saying
what I'm
you have to
saying.
do anything, but it's definitely a concern that a few citizens brought to my attention now.
So Dave,
Who,
our next safety meeting's on March 11th. We'll send you an invite for March 11th, but they're in the mornings.
Okay,
So it'll be 8.
I'll see what I can do to make it. Some I probably won't be able to make it to, but hopefully I'll be able to make it to.
Actually, how long do they go?
About 22 minutes.
Because I can make those easy.
Good
I actually
evening right
make
there.
the 8 o'clock meetings in the morning. I don't teach during the day. Well, I teach AP calculus as a volunteer for the high school. I do it for free, but I can cancel anytime because, so. Would that,
You're welcome.
would you, well, what I'm wondering is, would it be easier if I did the safety if it's during the day and he took the planning and zoning?
Can you put 2 with safety, or is it?
Yeah.
Safety is, it's something I like to at least be informed on, you know.
Well, you can, if you can do it, I'm just saying, if you have
I
trouble.
can't, maybe I'll call you.
you know what? That brings up another thing, because currently we have the first Wednesday of every month, we have planning, zoning, and the park. So that may not work with your schedule either.
Okay.
That committee. Let
Like
me
I
ask,
said, the safety one would fit me pretty easy because I can meet at 8 in the morning. I don't teach during the day.
So-
I have meetings sometimes, but it's usually Thursday or Friday.
would you be, well, and I've been going to the park committee and so have you. mean,
Yeah, I don't have to do the park if you want
I'll
me
leave
to.
it up to the mayor if he wants. to
Yeah,
change it.
I'm good either way. I'd be happy
The
to.
safety meetings are in the morning.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the safety?
Yeah, I
Let's
can
do
do
that.
the safety. Send me the invite then.
Yep.
And you can still send him to Dave and he'll come when he can come.
It's like being informed on safety issues for some reason.
Well, we're gonna leave you both. We're gonna leave you both on there.
Okay, I may not make it.
I'm gonna put UBIC, whoever's with the park, I'm gonna have them assigned to the UBIC because it's under the same pretense, even though we're not putting it under the same yet. Is that okay? And really, you're never gonna get invited to a UBIC meeting because I've never been. I don't even know when they are.
There'll be some problems or issues.
Well, no, I go to UBIC, but the meetings, like, huh? Do you know Chad?
Yeah.
He does it, and so I don't ever think they have meetings that we're invited to, so we'll be assigned to it.
Any council member could come.
But that way, if he has any concerns that they need for UBIC, I can, okay.
Just go get a burger, he'll fill you in. You're eating your burger.
Are there any, let's see, so UBIC we took care of, finance and audit we took care of. Don, are you still okay with planning and zoning, or should we make a switch there?
Like I said, I'm happy to keep trying to do it for now. I can make it most of the time, I may be some I can't make it too. So.
Okay, well, I'll put myself there and you both, and then hopefully we can tag team.
Like I said, if it's the first Wednesday of March, I shouldn't have a problem, and I can always cancel class or make an arrangement, or just tell you I can't make it and you'll have to go.
Okay.
Then you'll be there anyway, so it won't matter.
Yeah, that'll work. I think we got it pretty square. I'll send this out the way I have it written. We'll get,
Would you copy me on that?
yes, and actually, we'll have you help us make sure that we're getting all the dates and times and everything for the meetings, so that when we send this out, you'll have what you're assigned to, the meeting time and dates, and then if there's any questions, let us know, and we'll make any adjustments. Okay, city manager, do you have anything for us tonight?
Probably sick of me talking, huh?
No.
Well, are there any other reports on standing committees?
No.
I just wanted to go over a few things that the staff is working on right now. City recorder, we've opened that up, so Melissa's got that advertised right now until
Has that been posted on the Utah Department of Workforce Services as well? Because I think it says in the state law, I read recently that in the state law, it requires that all positions for cities have to be ran. But I can find the code though and send it. I don't know if, I know that in the past, I just noticed there's a few positions that weren't put in there and I didn't know.
Been our
We
policy.
knew better.
What state law.
It is our policy.
I clicked the link that was sent on my thing, and I think it went to the state website, and it had 3 positions that we had open.
I'm sure
I
it
just
is,
wanna
just
make
because
sure.
Melissa's handling it and she's
Okay.
yeah, for the county.
Okay, good. Thanks.
So we've got that open until position filled. We didn't put a date on it until we see what applicants we get on that, so.
We have about 20 applicants so far.
Wow.
So if we have 2 equally qualified applicants, is living in the city going to make or break the difference for 2 equally qualified candidates? Because I had a constituent ask me that question. He said he thinks we should hire from within the city, and I said, well, that kind of limits our
The only
Our
position
talent.
that's required to live in the city though is the city manager. I believe, so.
okay.
I mean, that's a decision by you guys, obviously, because
So will the city recorder, those applicants eventually come through our discussion?
They will.
Okay, all right,
this is a appointed position by
okay.
mayor, so. One of the big projects coming up that we've got funding for is the 500 East Sidewalk Project. So I don't know if you're informed or heard about it, but we are starting bids. We're gonna advertise to start bidding this week, so hopefully by the end of the month. Yeah.
So it's out there right now.
Yes.
Our
And CIFCO's been working with us good to make sure we're following guidelines is what we're required, so. As mentioned this morning, I know this sounds a little crazy, the golf course might open next week. If the weather is good, all right, promise me 9 holes.
Front nine, back nine, or a mixture.
I'll wait till the grass is green.
All the south facing ones. We are currently working on a new website. You're not gonna see the changes right now. We're working with Civic Plus, Lee Nicole, myself and Edwin. And we're meeting every week on how to restructure it, make it easier to navigate. And have it a little more attractive too. Right now, our website, I don't know if you guys get on there, but it's a little hard to navigate. So if there's ever a concern or question you guys have, or a complaint, just email me and hopefully we can integrate it in there. Because that's the ultimate goal, is to get this thing working on all cylinders. Because right now it's really weird how to get around, so.
Along with that, there's a website for the park committee that'll be independent. They'll be linked, but it'll be independent where we can post all the activities and everything else. So you don't have to navigate through Roosevelt cities to get to that. It's just, you can go directly to there and they'll be linked so you can get back and forth. But we wanted one that you can just go there and it's all the activities without having to navigate through all the other stuff. So,
I'm glad you brought that up. It's actually an additional cost on that.
oh,
But I'm trying to find another avenue through, say, Edwin's. I don't know if you guys ever got on there and clicked the aquatic center and then it opens up into his.
Mhm.
So we're hoping to get yours tied in.
what's
something like
the
that.
cost difference? Is it to create it or is it to
Annual
ongoing?
fee of, I really, okay, so base, right off the bat, it was like $3,500, and then the annual fee was like 1,200 or something. But for sportsmen's, it's pretty comparable, but it would be easier, because we already changed everything. So we're right there, so.
I guess we can look at it when you get it pretty much done, and if we want to spring for the $1,200 a year to have it separate, the 3,500 initial is separate, and maybe we can, but yeah, let's just.
Yeah, there was different packages on it, but that base rate was basically to get it set out to build it. And then
And do they make the changes when we request something, or do they give you the
we
tools and
make the
everything?
changes.
Okay.
That's another thing on the main website too, with all the buttons and browse, everything on there, we wanted it to where we can get on there, we can change it, so if an activity or something comes up or emergency, we can get on there and kind of move things around. It's gonna be pretty neat, I think. It's gonna look a lot cleaner.
Will you go back just to the 1,200 a year? Is that whether or not we add a link to this other page, or is that just to link one other page?
Just to link one more.
Because I could see if we had to pay that anyway, that seems like a lot.
Yeah, that's above and beyond. So every time, say we wanted to add a fire department thing.
Oh, so it's like a new URL basically,
Mhm.
and that's what we're paying for. It's just a whole new website basically. Okay.
But I think, I know the council approved that, but I don't know that they knew the cost.
You probably didn't, because they just barely threw out the bid to us.
Maybe that's something we can put on our next agenda and just see, and then we can get some feedback from the park committee. And
Well, let me check with Edwin's and see if his works, because if we can go off of his fee and just build it, then we don't have to pay.
And then maybe we could bring what Edwin's doing to the committee and have them look at it and make sure that that's
What they're after.
what they were, yeah, make sure that that's adequate. I think the biggest thing was just an ability to go straight to a page without having to go to Roosevelt Cities First and then find the button to click to go to that. Does that make sense? So it's easy for people to just quickly
Yeah.
access.
I like what you're doing. I think it'll be good for us to
Yeah.
have a cleaner website.
And we've kind of decided on a theme too, instead of just Teddy, and that's it, we're kind of adding a little bit. If you want to know where I'm talking on this, I don't know if I can explain it right, but if you get on Vernal's website, they've kind of done the dinosaur thing, with like dinosaur tracks and whatnot. We've decided to go towards the recreation of it, because there's so many things to do around here that people don't know, so we're gonna kind of have like a recreational feel to it too as well.
We definitely
And
ought
keep
to
Teddy. We can't
have
go
the-
to Teddy, 'cause
So we're branding kind of as a recreational city.
Well, he was a recreational guy.
Yeah,
he was, and he was also involved with the park, so that's,
Yeah,
we're trying to integrate that.
and I think that's smart.
Another thing that we're working on is the new budget. We're trying to get prepared, so Randy's kind of getting his ducks in a row, so he's got everything up and running. We're asking employees to get their capital projects, their expenditures together, and so we're prepared. So we are thinking about that, so you know.
So it's, sorry to ask so many questions.
No, you're fine.
Is it okay if I ask a
Yeah.
question? So as a part of the budget planning, I'm guessing you put together a table of organizations, obviously with all the potential positions, the full-time positions, part-time positions, and like seasonal positions? Or do you just kind of match last year's budget and think about changes you're making in those departments?
To pinpoint the revenue, you gotta see where your revenue is.
Okay,
what
gotcha.
we're projecting the revenue, and then we can go from there.
Okay,
And everything fits that.
all right. Cool. Well, I just was curious how you did that.
We're probably
Like
gonna
as
do a
far
template
as
a
like
little bit, I'll
Yeah.
read the last and then make the change.
That stuff should all be included.
I'd love to see a table of organization for the new year. If it could, I don't want to put more work on you guys though, so don't worry about it. If it's not something you're doing with the budget. So.
Now we'll look at it, I mean, we still have a few months, budget, so. kind of go over so you mentioned all the committees and everything like this that you guys are over. If there's anything you guys need to advertise to, like through the website or Facebook or a mailer even through the billing, just let me know. So if there's something you have that comes up, we can get it out there, like your cleanup day or whatever.
One report I do have on the park committee is that we had approved a certain budget for that committee. We went back to that committee and talked more about Red Mud Run, about 4th of July, and the events and the costs and everything else. And so that's something that we will have to readdress possibly in our next meeting. We haven't written anything in the resolution yet. What the preliminary approval was is to see if it would be allowed, and where it's allowed, now we thought the budget that was set would cover all that, and it's not going to, not the way we thought. So once we get that set and dialed in, and I know Randy's working on that right now too, to see where we've spent money on fireworks, where we've spent money on all these events and everything else, so that we can, because it sounds like all of those monies have just been kind of pulled from wherever, and there's really never been a consolidation of that. And so we want a really good overall look of where all that money's been spent, what budgets it's been spent out of and everything else, and then really combine that. So what'll happen is once that work's done, we'll bring it back before the council, and then once approved by the council, then we'll write it into resolution and then approve it.
Actually set a budget
Yeah.
for those things.
So just know that it's, we're not going to write it into resolution yet, just because there's more work that needs to be, more things that we've uncovered as we've gone. And so,
You didn't mention Missoula's, right? Missoula.
and that's another one. So Missoula's, and
And I'd like to, nothing against Missoula, because I think they do great stuff, but we have a lot of great people around here, maybe in the future looking at maybe
I agree with you.
still having it, but not using Missoula, using our own
One of
local
those,
people. I think we could save some money that way and still provide, because I think it's something we need to provide. I don't want to take that piece out, but I don't know that we need to bring someone in.
Well, and it's interesting to me that, there's a lot of people that do a lot of different events like Missoula's, but they're not city funded. And so I think that there's other avenues that we can go to do the same, like you're saying, to do the same thing. Maybe we can assist this much, and then the rest is donations, fundraising, those types of things.
that's one of the things, a lady that does local productions like that. I think in the beginning when Missoula came, she was kind of thinking, well, why are they, hiring this out of. Anyway, the feedback that I got later was that she found out how much they charged to do it. She's like, I wouldn't do it for that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying, I just would like to look at it, but if we have people that could do it for less, or, but I'd still like the kids to have that opportunity, because I think it does fit a group that,
Yeah.
maybe doesn't do as much with some of the other athletic type things that we're providing that. So I'd still like to have that.
Well, and the thing with the athletics is we can charge for the athletics, so we
Right.
can recoup some of those costs, and we can try to do that with Missoula. And that's my thing is that those are some hard things, and even the events at 4th of July. Now with the Arts, Parks and Rec Committee, if they want to do an event and they want to use their budget to do that, and they can
Get some money back.
get some money back, then so be it. But when we decided to go ahead and, as a city, to pay for these things where there's no opportunity for recovery of revenue, that's where it puts the Arts, Parks and Rec in
Right.
a really bad position. So we need to look at those different things and sort all those out and say, okay, what's the fixed cost that we're going to go? And then we still need to have enough money for these guys to work and do those other events where they can recoup. And if they choose to do one that they can't recoup the cost, that's their choice, but they know that money's gone. And there's a difference there. So we'll bring that up by the next council meeting and talk through some of those things. But
I think that's good.
Okay, my last thing is, I don't know if you guys know, there's a video out there for helping us recruit people to the basin, Duchesne County. So if you Google Duchesne County HR. I hope it's all right, but we sent it to, or at least I told Melissa to send it to Jim. It's awesome, but it actually makes me want to still work here.
Is it DuchesneCountyHR.com or?
Just type in Duchesne County HR, there's a 5.5-minute video. And it just kind of shows the county, but they really focused on Roosevelt City a lot.
Cool.
And it just shows all our facilities and what's here and all the high points. They did a good job, so.
Awesome.
And hopefully it was all right with send it to them, so. Get somebody here.
It's your job, man. Make those decisions.
Anyway, that's all I had, so.
Thanks, Ryan. And thanks to everyone that's here, all the staff that's here tonight. Appreciate you guys being here. It's really helpful to have you here and answer questions and give input, and we love to hear it. So, and I appreciate all the questions.
Yeah, there was
that
one
asked too.
thing on standing committee reports that I didn't remember.
Yeah, go for it.
At the last meeting we went to was tied to the local officials day in Salt Lake. We had a board meeting. But the league was pretty concerned about legislation that was proposed by or sponsored by Ron Winterton that had to do with taxes and things for oil field type services. The big concern is in order to pay for those tax breaks that would be given, it would take money out of the pot that all of the cities in the state share. And the counter to that was they were thinking, well, this will drive some more economic, money coming into these cities. But that was pulled off the table right now so that they can figure out a better way to fund it.
Right.
So that was just one thing. If I didn't really understand, I thought that was something tied to the new changes they were going to make with taxes, but that was something completely different that I didn't realize, and then talked to Senator Winterton and just said there was some concerns, and then Vernal City mayor and their manager made sure to talk to Senator Winterton, and so it's not dead, because we have some companies here, oil field companies drilling, that they are ready
Pushing
to
for
bring
that.
a bunch of rigs in, and it would benefit them a lot, and it would bring some economic growth to our area, but they're gonna have to do a little refiguring on that.
Gotcha. Thanks for that update. I did go to the railway meeting. I'll make it 10 seconds. We better get ready. That's all I can say. Because the rail is really, really, really good chance that it's going to come through. And that Economic Development Committee, we got to be on our toes, make sure that we're ready for the influx of people and growth that we're going to experience through that. So there's nothing else. We'll go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Councilman Baird motioned, and everybody seconded. Choose your pick.
I'll second.
I was standing mostly because I sit when I teach, because I have to broadcast, so I sit